I'm going to go have a three-Michelin-star meal by myself. It was just magic. Boom, boom, boom. 4 fire trucks like passed me on the road. I was like, made probably the biggest mistake of almost my entire career at the Charter Oak.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the very first episode of In the Weeds with Endwell Hospitality. I'm your host, brand director of Endwell Hospitality, Jack Dahlia. And today, for our first episode, we are starting out with our founder and CEO, Ryan Sohn. Ryan started in the hospitality industry when he was 12 years old and eventually went to school for hospitality, spent time in several different fine dining kitchens, and now joins us as our founder and CEO. Welcome, Ryan.
Happy to be here.
This is serving as like our launch.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
How are you feeling about the company and all the new concepts and everything like that?
It's an exciting time. It's still the beginning stages, and I think still building the team, still a ways out from restaurant openings, but very, very excited to start off and to have new blood on the team and to kind of see what we can build together.
Yeah, that's awesome. First question, what were you doing in hospitality at 12 years old? That's a little early.
So it was probably 12. It may have even been before that. So my mom's side of the family, had a hotel and restaurant on the Jersey Shore called the Windrift in Avalon, New Jersey. And it was always in my family. My grandfather built it and ran it. My aunt and uncle ran it for a long time. And so as a kid, every summer for summer break, my mom would drive me and my brother down to the shore, and we would more or less live there for the entire summer. And during that time, I would be staying with my aunt, and I'd ride my bike to work, and I just did all the odd jobs and just kind of like got cash in my pocket, So I started working. Yeah, the first thing I remember doing was there was always like a craft show weekend, like the first weekend of August, I think. And basically it was like right across the street from the hotel. Mm-hmm. And so parking was such a nightmare. And so the guests would run into issues with like finding parking spots. So I would literally ride my bike around the parking lot and like put orange cones in parking spots, like reserving them for hotel guests.
Oh my God.
And like sweeping the parking lot for like cigarette butts. And like, that's where I started.
So you really did start at the bottom and you worked your way up.
Yeah, I was there, worked the front desk, like checked people in, checked people out, answered the phone, made reservations for people.
I did that for a year. That can be an intense job.
It was tough. I mean, I was like 12, 13 answering the phone, like, more or less having to be like really professional and be like, front of house for the hotel. So it was really fun. I worked like 5 days a week every summer. I ride my bike to work. It was super fun. So that's where I started. I bellhopped. I'd like shadow the maintenance team. My first foray really was in hotels and not necessarily restaurants.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. Maybe.
But that's really cool. I feel like that doesn't happen a lot anymore. The sort of like, throw your kid into the family business and just see what happens.
Yeah, it was like we all did it. So like my brother also worked in the hotel or more in the restaurant side. My cousin was also bus tables and was a waitress later on too. So we all, every summer it was the three of us kind of there. Me and my brother, would stay there together, and so all three of us were always kind of in and out of the restaurants and like working all summer together.
That sounds so fun. That sounds like a show.
It was. It spanned from being really young to even through high school, through college. But it was a really great way to kind of to grow up and to be in the industry. And it's really the only thing I've ever done is hospitality.
That's incredible. So you did that all your summers, even through high school, and then you ended up going to college at Cornell for hospitality.
Yeah, so grew up in Endwell, New York, upstate New York, a little suburb of Binghamton. Cornell was always there. It was only like 45 minutes away. And so it was always like the dream. It was always like my, the guiding light of like, hey, grew up in hospitality. Okay, it makes sense. Like I'm going to go to the hotel school. And Cornell has an amazing hotel school program. And so that was always just like, that's what I'm going to do. And so, I went early decision to Cornell and got in. Nice. And I applied to one school, got in, and that was it.
Oh my God, I love that. Yeah. How was that experience? Did you learn a lot? Do you think it was worth it in sort of your long-term career?
Yeah, I think it I went into it thinking, okay, yeah, I'm going to go into hotels. I'm going to go into, I didn't think I would be in restaurants.
Yeah.
And so, my first couple internships, I was like, I did, hotel accounting for Westin. I did revenue management for a Hyatt in DC one of the summers. And then kind of on the tail end of that, I think it was like my sophomore into junior year, spent the first half doing revenue management and like I got like more math and kind of back office things, and then spent the second half of my summer at the shore working at the Windrift. And that was the summer that I shadowed my uncle, who was like the GM of the property. And so all I did the entire rest of that summer was I was just like glued to his hip, and got to like really see, what restaurant management was on like a pretty large scale. I mean, it's funny, like people think, like a small little Jersey Shore operation, like it was a huge operation. So being able to see that and, see the life, I mean, it was, really long days. We worked 6 days a week. We had Thursdays off. It was like family Thursdays was the only day we had off. And so that was my first really foray into restaurants. I was like, yeah, this is it. Like the energy of it. I loved, every day is so different.
And it sounds like you really like enjoyed every single aspect or department of it too, which is really interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was the first part was like, okay, I'm just going to kind of oversee and just be a kind of manager, like a floor manager. I bar backed for a little bit, helped there. That's where I, got my first kind of, taste of wine life too, and kind of learning about wines.
Yeah.
And so I took my intro, Court of Master Sommeliers test, I think either it was like sophomore year maybe. So I was kind of really getting into it at that point.
I didn't know you were like a little certified som. Fancy.
Yeah. So yeah, I graduated early, I studied for, 3-4 months, tons of flashcards and blind tastings and things like that. And
that's the part that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
These blind tastings. That's wild.
Yeah. So it was definitely really hard. And one of the more nerve-wracking moments of my career of like taking that exam was like super stressful.
Yeah.
But I think everyone that was around me really enjoyed the process, because I would just, I'd basically be doing blind tastings. I'd have tons of wine, and everyone else got to just like hang out and like, enjoy some nice wines. Yeah, you'd be a good friend to have. And so, so it was like, I graduated in December, so I could really just kind of focus on that. And yeah, so I was at home because I was only 45 minutes away, so I'd be between Cornell and home. And so if I was home, I'd be doing tastings with my parents and their friends, doing blind tastings and really going through like the whole matrix of wine. And then I'd go up to school and I would, study with my friends up there too. And they got to, I'd just be like bringing in like cases of wine and be like, all right, cool. Like I would do my actual studying, and then they'd get to party after.
Oh my God. Best of both worlds.
Yeah, it was great. It was really fun. I never ended up really going into the wine world, but it was nice to kind of know and understand that world a little bit.
I mean, wine adjacent. One White Street has a huge wine program.
And and I'm very happy to leave it to Suze to run that and to own that. She does a great job with it.
Yeah.
And she's the expert, and I'm happy to support her in any way.
Yeah. So before I dig more into One White Street, let's talk a little bit more about like what happened after college and what kind of led you into One White Street.
Through my junior, senior year, I got really focused into restaurants and wine, and decided that, I wanted to go into more restaurant management path than just like a wine path. And so took a job with Hillstone Restaurant Group right out of college. Moved to Dallas, went through their management training program, which was amazing. 4 months of spending a week doing every single position in the restaurant. So, I think the first month was front of house. So I was at the host stand for a week. Then I was, at the bar for a week. I was serving, I trained as a server for a week, and then I would serve tables for I think 2 weeks. And then you go to the kitchen. You're like a week as a dishwasher, a week as the prep position 1, prep 2, all down the line. And so, that was like 3 months of training in the kitchen, which I'd never really experienced a lot of kitchen life before that.
Yeah.
We had a couple, cooking classes at Cornell, and I enjoyed them, but I didn't really ever think that was going to be my path. And so that really would like open my eyes, like, wow, like I really, really like the kitchen. And so I finished my training and, was on like the front of house manager path for them. And so I finished that, and they moved me to San Francisco. And I worked as a front house manager for, a few months. I think I got there in September. And then by like March, April, I was like, hey, I like this, but I find myself drawn to the kitchen. And like when, the restaurant would get really busy, I'd always be the one that would be like jumping on the line, like helping those guys out. And I was like, I'm not gonna fight it. Like this is where I think I should go.
Yeah.
And they were, super accommodating to me, and they're like, great. So we'll put you on like a shorter path to like, okay, let's get you really trained up a little bit more in the kitchen. Did that for like, 3-4 more months. And then immediately they were like, cool. Like we have a kitchen manager position down in Los Altos, which was like 45 minutes south of San Francisco. Like, do you want to be the kitchen manager and run the kitchen there? I was like, great. So it was a great opportunity. Moved down there and ran that kitchen for a year. And yeah, it was a great experience. I think Hillstone really does it right. They attract, really smart people that aren't necessarily just like hospitality people either. Like a lot of people that were in my training class were like, people from Georgetown and like really like prestigious universities that didn't study hospitality, but just like really found a passion for it. Mm-hmm. And
I encounter those stories all the time.
Yeah. And so it was, I have such a respect for that company. I learned so much. It was really like the bedrock of like the foundation of, of my hospitality life. And it was super intense and very hard. But I loved it, and I still go back to Hillstones all the time, and R&D kitchen or wherever I go. I always
and you jump on the line and you're like, you're doing that wrong.
No,
and you're like,
never. But I appreciate what they do, and I appreciate everything there, and so that was like my first foray into it. And I got like my first taste of like kitchen life. I was like, wow, I really enjoy this. I love prepping. I love working with my hands. Again, every day is different in hospitality and restaurants, and it was so much fun. And so after Hillstone, I got offered a position to be the director of kitchen operations for a project called China Live in San Francisco. And this was, I guess this was 2017, 2018 maybe. And kind of like the food hall kind of style was kind of becoming really popular. Mm-hmm. And China Live was this like 20,000 square foot, 3-floor project in San Francisco, Chinatown, that had like a marketplace that was like, casual dining with different stations, a retail component, a speakeasy, a fine dining restaurant, catering space. And they're like, hey, we need someone to help run kitchen operations. I was like, great. Like we have chefs that are going to like actually like, execute food and recipes, but we need someone that's going to like, crunch the numbers and make sure that like operationally, like this is running smooth, and which is, was at this point my strong suit, because I didn't know how to cook. I just know how to manage kitchens, but I didn't know how to cook.
Yeah.
So was there for a kind of a shorter stint, and I helped open 8 Tables, which was like their fine dining restaurant, and helped like open their catering pieces. But at the end of the day, kind of saw that my path there was kind of limited because I didn't know how to cook.
Yeah.
So I knew how to manage kitchens, but I needed that experience of just like actual, like, I need that skill set. Yeah, exactly. So I was like, hey, I appreciate the offer. I appreciate being here, but like, I just don't like, for me to better my career, I have to like take a step back. Mm-hmm. And so I, decided, hey, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go to culinary school. And so, International Culinary Center, which is based out of Soho was at Soho at the time. But they had a campus in San Jose.
Oh, nice.
And so I was like, all right, cool. Like I'm going to do like your accelerated program. I think it was like 4 months. And
these culinary schools are crazy with these.
Yeah. So it was like 4 months, and it was like, I started in January, and it was awesome. Like I loved it. I was probably like one of the happiest times of my entire life. I was just like, really getting to like dive into something that you're really passionate about, and learning every day, and learning techniques, and like really, I don't know, it was just, I had so much fun. And so did that for 3 months. And then you have an externship afterwards. Like you have to do like, practical skills. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, me being a little bit crazy and, ambitious, I was like, well, cool. If I'm going to do this, like, I want to go to like the best restaurant I can possibly go to.
Obviously.
And so, some of my friends went to like barbecue places and this like smaller, mom and pop kind of shops. I was like, I'm like, I'm going to go for it. And so I staged at Quince in San Francisco, which was a 3-Michelin-star restaurant, still is.
Very cool.
I staged there, and then I was like,
For our viewers at home who maybe don't work closely with the hospitality industry, can you explain what an externship is and what a stage is?
So externship is, it's basically just like basically you take the skills that you've learned for, the last 3 months, and okay, now you're gonna actually put it to the test, and you're gonna work in an actual restaurant, get paid to be there, and work real shifts and kind of put your skills to the test and see, and get that kind of practical knowledge. And most times after that, they'll either offer you a position, or if you don't like it, you can kind of move on, but it kind of gives you the opportunity to like actually cook and actually be in it.
Yeah.
And staging is, it's, basically it's a cool part of the restaurant industry where, you can basically show up at any restaurant's door and be like, hey, I just want to, help out. I want to like see your kitchen. Can I stage for the day? And people will be like, yeah, cool. And you just go in, they just put you to work,
Yeah.
you get to, pick herbs or,
Get
do prep
That's
or
such a cute way to
whatever
phrase
it
that.
is, but it's like, you're just there, and for free, you can kind of go and experience what that restaurant's like. And so, yeah, tremendous opportunity. So I went to Quince, I staged there. And then I went and I was like, oh, you know what? There's the restaurant at Meadowood. It's like this other 3-Michelin-star restaurant in Napa Valley. I applied to the French Laundry. They didn't get back to me. So I was like, okay, like fine, cool.
Thomas.
And so I was like, you know what? I want to go. I never dined at a 3-Michelin-star restaurant. So let me go. So I drove up from San Francisco as a solo diner and just was like, I'm going to go have a 3-Michelin-star meal by myself. And I sat there, and it was just magic. Like, it was like, again, first 3-Michelin-star meal. And
So that was your first ever
Yeah.
3-Michelin-star meal.
yeah,
Wonderful.
and then like, I think as a solo diner too, you get, they send you extras because, again, you're not talking to anyone. I was solely just focused on service and the food, and I still remember it. Like, I still remember the dishes that I ate, and I left that meal. They brought me into the kitchen. I got to speak with one of the sous chefs, who was then my sous chef later when I joined. And it was like, hey, I really want to like, potentially, extern here. Is that possible? Like, yeah, like, reach out to this person. I was like, great. So I'm like driving home, like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, that was incredible. I want to work at this place. So yeah, I reached out to the sous chef. I got a stage there, and it was just like, it was intense, but it was so clean, and so, it was such a well-oiled machine, and the food was just like things I've never seen before, and it was magical. And so they offered me the externship. I think I made like $300 a week, I think, for my externship.
Oh my God.
And
In California.
in Napa. And so I moved up there for like, I think it was like maybe like 6 weeks or 8 weeks or something. And I think I worked like, it was like, I don't know, like 7 a.m. to like 7 p.m. at least as a prep, as a commis. And it was amazing. It was just like again, so hard, so demanding. Like, perfection is the only thing that is like the only option. And the team was so great. Like, Chef Costa was, incredible. And so, yeah, that was my first foray into it. And I just was like, this is incredible. I love this so much. I was so happy. I just I think to be learning and to be in an environment that, people were pushing that hard. I just was like, I just ate it up. And so after my externship, I was like, hey, like, can I come on full time? And, Chef Costa was like, I don't have any positions available. I have someone coming in from England that's going to take in the next spot. But after that, you're in the queue. But I don't have anything right now. So you can go to the Charter Oak, which had just opened, and cook at the Charter Oak. And then when the spot's available, we'll bring you up. I was like, cool, done. So I started at the Charter Oak, and I eventually was, I learned how to bake bread. I was like the main baker there for probably a year. It was like my first week, and the person that was the baker, kind of quit on the spot. And so I had done like 2 days of training with that person, and they're like, hey, like, can you bake the bread? I was like, yeah, I did 2 days. Like, I definitely, like, it was, it was tough, but learned how to do it. Made probably the biggest mistake of almost my entire career at the Charter Oak.
Tell him.
Oh my God, it was like the worst. I thought Chef Costo and Chef Kat were gonna kill me. So their sourdough starter is like 25 years old, and they got it from the original Tartine in San Francisco. Oh. And I think it was like my second week or third week solo baking, and I threw away the starter. Yeah. And no.
All of it?
So I saved it. I was able to save it. I basically was able to like use a loaf of bread, and like I basically was able to save and kind of constitute it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I still have friends that I coach with at that point that make fun of me for it. I mean, it's like the biggest thing that you cannot do is throw away the freaking starter.
The starter, yeah.
And yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't even think Chef Kat could even like look at me. And I love Chef Kat. Like I think my year and a half there working under her was amazing. She is the most talented chef I think I've ever seen. Like watching her work was incredible. But she's also like, super intense and super demanding, and I just wanted to die. It was
I can't even imagine the feeling, because then obviously you have to be the one to be like, hi, chef.
Yeah. Yeah. So luckily I saved it, and like all is well, but oh my God, one of the most mortifying, it's like those moments where like you wake up in the middle of the night and you get like
you're like, it's far away.
I still think and feel that way about that. But yeah, I mean, I think had a great experience at the Charter Oak, learned how to bake, did all their pastries, did all their like lamination of doughs for croissants and different things like that.
And that's a very different working in like the kitchen is very different than working in like the pastry program.
Yeah, I mean, it's super, it's very scientific, very recipe driven, which is works for me. I'm like very kind of meticulous in that way. But it's also like artsy, and it's like there's a lot of feel to it as well. Temperature changes, humidity, all those things kind of play a part into like how the bread
altitude and stuff like that.
All those things. So. Great skill to have. Super blessed that I got to do it. And then, I started working on the line, the hearth, which was, so the Charter Oak was all live fire cooking. Ooh. And so got to like really learn how to cook with coals, and it was, an amazing experience. And so, yeah, I was there for almost a year and a half. And at that point, the position became available for me to go to the restaurant.
It took that long for a position to become available?
Mm-hmm. And so, paid my dues, and then it was like, hey, the opportunity came in September of 2019, I guess it was. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I got my name called. I was like, all right, great. And so, I started up there, I started at my first position was on pastry. So I was doing all of the canapes and all of the last bites for the restaurant. So it was like, all the mignardises, all the little, chocolates and candies and things. I learned how to do all those. And it was my year at Meadowood was the hardest year of my career. Pushed me to limits that I didn't know that I could like get to. Mm-hmm. Met incredible people, that I still talk to that, I really, I think when you're in the trenches like that, you just like, it's a different bond.
It's called trauma bonding, but I'll edit that part out.
But no, I think I think super respectful environment.
Okay.
But the expectation was just super high, and you had to execute, and they'd push you to be better. Mm-hmm. If they thought you could do it in 3 hours, okay, they give you 2.5. It's like, cool, your call time today is actually going to be 1:00, not 12. Like, let's see if you can do it. And yeah, it was
fire every step
and
of the way.
So it's like, yeah, you have less time, but it's supposed to be perfect.
Yes.
And so it was, an amazing experience.
What is like, if you could boil it down to like one sort of central lesson or value or mantra that you got from that year, what do you think that might be?
I think it was just, honestly, it was just like self-belief. And, I think again, I don't think I was the most talented cook by any means. I definitely wasn't. I think I was probably the least talented cook there was only 6 cooks in the kitchen. And I don't think that I was nearly, like, there are other people that were way better, had way more experience. But I think you just learn how to grind it out and figure it out. And
It
there was
kind of sounds
definitely,
like that's the like that
yeah,
right
yeah,
there
yeah.
is like just like yes, you can do it. It's not easy, but like push through.
Yeah, you just find a way. You just
Yeah.
absolutely have to find a way. And yeah, there's definitely things that I struggled with that, I just like, it was hard. But I think the team around me was incredible, and we'd lift each other up and try to figure, again, we were just trying to get through services and trying to like, fight our way through. But I also met like amazing people in my life that I still, are still such close friends, and
very important parts
yeah,
of what we're building here.
Exactly. And also got to meet and get to experience so many amazing chefs as well. So yeah.
You said that you started there in the summer of 2019. So shortly after that, something very big happened in the world that changed everybody's plans.
Yeah.
So what happened at that point?
So yeah, it was weird. I remember right before COVID like shut down the world. It was like I think it was like a Saturday service, and we were kind of talking about like, hey, this thing happening. We'll see what goes on. And then by the time like Tuesday rolled around, it was like, okay, like everything was shutting down. And luckily, very blessed that Chef Costo like took care of us. I think all the employees of the restaurant, he supported through, he paid us all, like gave us all severances and like help. Basically was like, I'm paying you guys, just stay home, be safe.
Wow. That's incredible.
And in addition to getting like the unemployment, all those different things, it
Yeah.
was just like, hey, like just stay home, and took care of us and didn't have to do it.
Well, that's not very common.
Yeah.
Like, there were a lot of other people that weren't doing that, so we
No,
certainly didn't have to.
No, and so, it was a weird time. We closed the restaurant. I remember, sitting down with him and like him explaining, like basically we were all getting laid off. And then luckily, I think the restaurant didn't open back up until I think July or maybe the end of June. The Charter Oak opened early, and so he was like, hey, like, do you want to like help out the Charter Oak? I was like, yeah, like, I'm not doing anything. I want to like do something.
I am so bored.
Yeah.
Please.
So I mean, I definitely took advantage of being on like the downtime. It was like the first time I had downtime like since like I had graduated, so I definitely enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But then went back and like was like helping bake and helping at the Charter Oak, and then when the restaurant reopened, went back there, was there through that, and then
Then something else. Really
and then we had wildfires, and so
Sorry,
I think we had
laugh. It's just like the
wildfires in August. We're doing outdoor dining, masks on, wildfires happening, like ash falling on tables. People still like, I still want to dine, and we're like, all right, I guess we're cooking. Like there was one day, like, and I think it was in August, the power went out. Like they shut the power because with the fires, like they strategically shut down the powers. And so luckily, like the restaurant had like a generator, so all the refrigeration, everything kept working, but there was no lights. So we were all in the kitchen with like headlamps cooking. It was wild. It was wild. Anything that I threw was just like, we're still open, we're still going. So you just kind of roll with the punches. But at the end of September, another wildfire. I remember the night. I remember the whole thing. I mean, it was a Saturday service. At this point, I had given notice. I was, feeling, really homesick. I'd been away for 5-6 years and just felt like I was missing out on, family.
Yeah.
And so, sat down with Chef Costa. I was like, hey, like, I appreciate the opportunity. But I just gotta go home. Like and the first time I ever really felt like I just need to go home. I just need to be with my family. I think COVID through everything was just really hard.
Yeah.
And
because you stayed in California through.
Yeah, I stayed in California for all of it. And I was the only one out there. My aunt was out there occasionally for it, but I just need to go home. And so I gave my notice. And so I think that was like my first week. I had one more week left. And so it was like a Saturday service. It was a great service. Chef Thomas Keller came in.
Wow.
And I remember like, being nervous. You're always nervous to cook for, someone like that. And I remember like, we crushed the service. I remember like high-fiving all the guys. After that service, we all went back to one of the cooks' apartments in St. Helena, and because we were off on Sunday, we were all just kind of like hung out until like 4 a.m. or something, just hanging out talking. And yeah, I was like, all right, cool. We're all sitting there, and we just feel like this warm breeze roll through, and we all looked at each other like, that was weird. And we kind of keep going about our business. Okay, everyone's gonna go home. Okay, cool. So I'm driving back down the valley because I lived in the more downtown Napa, and so I'm driving down, and boom, 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 4 fire trucks like passed me on the road. I was like, what the like, and I look at my rear view mirror, and the whole sky is just like red. I was like, oh shit. So I turned around. I started following the fire trucks back up the valley, and sure enough, like right north of St. Helena, the hills were all on fire.
Oh my God.
And so I sat there and I watched like the flames. I watched it till I think till the sun came up. It was probably like 7. I was like pulled on the side of the road just like watching it. And then then it started getting closer to St. Helena. They evacuated St. Helena. So I had like friends and cooks and servers. Like I had like 7 people that were staying with me in downtown Napa because we were like out of the evacuation zone.
Yeah.
And then I remember like being on Twitter, and boom, it's a picture of the entire restaurant just engulfed in flames.
Oh my God.
And just like feeling sick, just be like, that restaurant was so incredible. And yeah, it was just really sad. And it hasn't reopened. And yeah.
Would you want it to, or would you want it to stay this sort of perfect thing in your memory?
I would think I'll always have that memory of it being like this perfect thing in my head. So, if it opens again, I would be like, I would love for it to be open again, to be able to go back and to, say hi to chef and to like see what that new iteration would be. But yeah, it was wild times.
So where did the fire take you?
So at that point I was already gonna move back to New York. I didn't have a job. So I flew back to New York, and I wasn't sure what I was gonna do. I at this point I was at a crossroads. In January of 2020, or 2021 now, one of my close friends and former sous chef Daniel Kim, we were always very, very close. When he was my sous, he was exec sous at Meadowood. And
was he who you spoke to when you went back into the kitchen after your first meal and spoke to
No,
someone?
it wasn't him. It was that was Chef David, who eventually was like the chef at the Charter Oak when I was there, after Chef Cat left. But when I externed, a lot of the prep that I used to do was for Daniel, because he at that point he was on the line, he was on the meat station, and so being that we're both Korean, I don't know, we just had this like kind of this bond, and so at that point, like it was like we kind of became close and we're friends, and he was kind of guiding me through things. And then when I came back, when I was at the Charter Oak, he got promoted to sous chef, and he always like vouched for me and was always like trying to push for me to kind of get that nod to come up to the restaurant. And so I owe a lot to Daniel. He really was a huge mentor for me in my kitchen career. And so at that point we were like, hey, we're not doing anything, like, do you want to do a pop-up? And it's like, of course, like the worst timing we could possibly choose. Like January of 21 was like the Delta variant of COVID. So
still no vaccine.
We're like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like, so, it's a great time to do a pop-up. So we rented an Airbnb for 2 weeks. And for the first week we just like prepped and like got a menu together, and we did 2 dinners the following week. It was like a full tasting menu. But we only could do like 2 tables a night.
Yeah. How did you find guests?
They were friends of Daniel's in LA.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so we did like this tiny little pop-up, but it kind of gave us like that creative juice. Like, okay, like this is a possibility. Like there's something here.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well maybe we could figure out like a restaurant. And it was funny. I was actually in LA for working with doing that pop-up that, I got the call from Opera Crew, who was someone, so I knew Dustin Wilson, through Verve Wine. And so I'd kind of talked to them through in like August of 2020 about like, hey, we're doing this thing called Operate Crew. Basically, we're trying to save restaurants through COVID. We're trying to basically give them funding, give them strategic support, and help them get through this crazy time in the industry. And I was like, that sounds super interesting. And they're like, hey, we don't really have anything yet. We're still kind of building it out. Like, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, let me know when you have something. Like, and we'll talk. Maybe something will happen. So then, I think it might have been New Year's Day, honestly. I think it was New Year's morning. I had an interview with them, and they're like, hey, we don't have anyone on the team, but like, hey, would you want to come on and like help us out? We know you're in California right now, but you could, I still had my apartment in Napa, and so like come to New York and, we'll figure something out. And so I was like, yeah, that sounds great. So February I started with them. I moved back to New York in March and started working with Operate Crew and I was there for over 2 years.
And how was that experience?
That set me up for everything. I got to work alongside or, right below Sabato Sagaria, who is an incredible, he's a master som, but also was like president of USHG, Union Square Hospitality Group, and was more or less like for the first year, like just like his assistant. I felt like it was just like I got to work right beside him and really get my hands dirty and all the different things. And so Operate Crew had partnered with PDT, Please Don't Tell, in the East Village cocktail bar. They had partnered with Pig and Cow, Mark Forgione and his restaurants, and glazed teriyaki. Like, so we had like a mix of all these different restaurants, and I basically was going in and helping to reopen them after COVID. Wow. So like I was there for the reopening of Pig and Cow. I was there for the reopening of, getting PDT and Criff Dogs rebuilt and reopened. Peasant in Nolita, and was basically there building out these systems and putting in, new point of sale, payroll systems, inventory management, all these different pieces so that way, we could kind of get a better pulse on how they were running their businesses and give them operational support. And so I would bounce around between all the restaurants every day, solving little problems or giving advice and doing different things. And so those two and a half years were huge, and really laid the foundation for where I am now. And then, I was, at this point, it was like 2023, was kind of looking to kind of do my own thing. And so the opportunity came to, my aunt reached out to me. I was like, hey, we're in Santa Barbara a lot. I think we should open a restaurant in Santa Barbara. And I was like, Santa Barbara is beautiful. That's great. And so, they found this location of, hey, like, what do you think about this building? And it's like this historic building in Carpinteria. It's the Palms, it's like, it's like a mainstay. It's on the main drag of Carp. Like, what do you think? And I was like, initially I was like, it's too big. I'm out. And then a few weeks later, I was like, what if we did like a farm, and then you had a farm and you could do that? I was like, again, coming off of they obviously have One White Street and Rigger Hill Market and Rigger Hill Farm. And so I was like, okay, like I kind of understand roughly kind of what that playbook looks like. They're executing it now. I'm not a part of it, but like I see what they're doing. I was like, okay, that sounds interesting. Like, okay, maybe I would have interest in that. And then it's like, I'm like on the plane. I think I was at this point I was traveling for Operate Crew. I was in LA for working with Chef Ludo at Petit Trois, and I think I was coming back, and they're like, hey, like, so, we're getting the farm, so I think we should do the restaurant. And I was like, okay, great, let's do it. And
they said, you're hired, just in case you were wondering. We're doing it now, and we start now. So.
Yeah. And I was like, at this point I was like, great, I know exactly who I want to work with. I know I want to work with Daniel, and cool, like, let's do it. Now we're 2 years almost to the day to when I started. And
if that's any indication of like how construction goes and development and permits and all that.
And California's still not open.
Right.
Construction has not started yet.
No.
And but super blessed to have the opportunity.
We don't even have names. We don't even have names for things.
I know. So, but I think being a part of One White Street Rigger Hill Market, Rigger Hill Farm, and learning how that dynamic kind of works is like, again, kind of the playbook for how we're going to execute things in California.
And what are we going to execute in California? Thank you so much for listening. Next week, Ryan and I dig into the new projects coming up in California and his vision for Endwell Hospitality. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss part 2. I'm your host, Jack Dahlia, and on behalf of everyone at Endwell Hospitality, remember, be well, eat well, live well.